Everyone, can we get seated so we can get started, please? Thank you. And as you know, this is the first time that this effective prayer class, the first time that I have prepared it and presented it, and so therefore, last week I felt like I was a little bit shy on timing. So this week, I'm afraid I might be a little too long. So I want to get started on time so that we can end on time, and appreciate you all being here. And just a quick review, these were up last week, but we didn't go over them because this is session 2 of the Effective Prayer for These Times workshop. And also, I didn't really plan last time to accommodate online viewers. We have more participation by the people who are here and the people for that as well. All right. I don't know. If I look at this, then I'm just fine. Except I sound funny. Anyway, this week we're going to be reviewing the 5 steps process. And as we mentioned, which we'll go over, we also call them 5 movements. And we're going to be talking about incorporating affirmations into the prayer process, establish a sustainable prayer practice. Okay. We are going to get started by centering ourselves and opening with prayer. So please relax, take a deep breath. Move from that physicalness, from that body awareness, into an awareness of space, that space where the inner you is found, where heart and mind come together and we connect with the consciousness within that is our Christ self. And we anticipate this evening will be filled with learning and awakening and helping us to move ourselves to a place where we can connect with that consciousness, that Christ center more easily and more frequently, so that we can actually live our lives on a daily basis from that oneness. And that is our aim, to live from a place of oneness, following the example of our way shower, Jesus the Christ. And we are so grateful for all of us being together today. And we know that this will bring everything that we expect and more. And with gratitude for all of these many blessings, we know it is so, and we say, Amen. Well, thank you all for being here. And as I said, you guys want to grab, these are new add-on sheets. The first thing that we're going to do is review that prayer process that we covered quickly at the end of last week's session. And those steps are also, we look at them not just as steps, but as the movement from one prayer process to the next. They flow into one another. And so that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be flowing from the first movement to the second and on through the fifth, and then be talking about the denials and affirmations and, thank you, Nick. So step one is that relaxation phase, where we open ourselves to that awareness of that Christ center, where we relax physically, but we also, after consciously relaxing our face, neck, just you move down through your body. Remind everywhere from facially all down through the core of your body, into your legs, feet, and eyes, and really relax that physical form, because as you relax the physical form, it also relaxes the mind. And when we relax the mind, what we're doing is we're allowing, thoughts are going to come, and it's okay. When those thoughts come, one of the things that I like to do is use a visualization of something like a leaf floating down a stream. Mike and I live next to Paint Creek, and we've got a bridge that goes over the Paint Creek. And in the fall, even in the summertime, there are typically going to be things that are just floating on top of the water, and you can watch them float by, and that's what you need to do with your thoughts. Don't focus on them, but don't give them your attention. Allow them to just float by. So when we open our heart space, then what we're doing is we're opening ourselves to that power and presence that lives in, through, and as us. And we also open ourselves to new understanding. Because sometimes when we're praying, we don't necessarily get an answer in the form of a voice speaking to us. And it may not come during the prayer. It may come sometime later. But you're open to a new understanding, that something that you see or coincidence that occurs. You notice and realize that that is in part or completely the answer you were looking for. So you want to begin your prayer process with I open statements. And this is an example. In this moment, I become still and open my heart to new understanding. Or perhaps you might want to say something like, I pause and open my heart and mind. I choose to allow myself the possibility of a new perspective, one grounded in spiritual principle and in my infinite potential. In this moment, I consciously open to what is possible. Or perhaps I relax my body, open my mind to truth, open my heart to the light within. In this state of expectancy, I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to hear. I'm ready to receive. So now it's your turn. And if you look in your workbooks on page 6, you will see these samples, and it's basically the same thing that we just went over. And I want you to take just a few minutes, and everyone at home, that's why I put this up on the screen, because this is the same thing that everyone has in their workbook here. And I want you to use these examples on the screen and create your own phrase, something that works for you, that expresses your openness or your opening, your allowing for spirit to enter in that space. Just about another minute. Now, you don't have to, but is anyone willing to share what they wrote?
We become still and let our spirit find the answers we need.
Very nice. Anyone else?
I allow Spirit to move in and through me to direct my next step.
Very nice. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that openness, for that allowing, for recognizing that there is a presence and power in us that works through us. And we want to be open to that. And then we move from that openness moves us into a recognition phase, a phase where we focus on that divinity, that God within. I recognize God is. My mind and heart are open and relaxed. I turn my thoughts away from the physical, inward, towards spirit, the indwelling Christ self. And I remember that the images from my childhood are no longer valid. God is not a person. God is not separate. God lives in me. God is all. God is omniscience, all-knowing, all-knowledge, omnipresence, everywhere present, always present, omnipotence, all power. Anything that's possible is possible through that divine principle, not a man in the sky sitting on a throne. That presence and power that lives in each and every one of us. In this second movement, what we want to do here, because God is all, that's a little too much for us to take in and to use in a specific situation. So what we want to do is choose a quality of the divine that would be helpful in the situation for which we're praying. So perhaps if it's a health issue, well, let me look at my examples that I wrote ahead of time. If we're worried, we might want to focus on peace. The divine is peace, the peace that passes understanding. We want to give that as our focus. If we're afraid, perhaps we want to focus on faith, that quality of God that is faith. If we're angry, harmony might be our choice. Or if we're confused, we may ask for wisdom. And one of the handouts that you've received, we're not really going to be going over it, but one of the handouts is the 12 powers, written about by Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore. And those 12 powers are a good place to start, but there's more beyond those 12 powers that you can access. So these are sample statements of that recognition phase, of that concentration and focus phase. For peace, I recognize peace in this moment, peace that passes all understanding, peace that is available and accessible, unchanging, ever constant, peace that is the very fabric of the all that is. Or in the case of wisdom, I recognize there is only one power and one presence, and it is wisdom. The wisdom is the deep, innate, intuitive knowing, present as a flower as it blooms, or a bird as it takes flight. And this wisdom is available to me now. So now it's your turn again. I want you to use those samples and write down some of the aspects of the divine that you might want to access. You may have a situation in mind right now. What would be the power or the principle that would help you in a specific situation of which you may have a concern? So take a minute. Shouldn't take long, just take a minute or so. This is on page 7 in the workbook. Just about a half a minute. Okay, what are some other aspects of spirit that we might recognize that might help us in a specific situation? Anyone?
Release the human condition.
Okay, you probably want to be a little more specific than that. The releasing is part of what you did in the opening statement. So you want to look for something that's going to support you, like if it's a health condition, maybe wholeness. If it's anger, maybe calmness. So you might want to try to find something specific that is an aspect of goodness, an aspect of that divine oneness that's going to help you in a specific situation. And I'll be honest with you, when I went through studying this process, I had a hard time with that myself. So it's okay to not be perfect, which, boy, do I have a challenge with that. So, and that's part of what we're learning. In our humanness, we are not perfect, and it's okay. And that takes understanding, that takes acceptance. And those are some things that we can ask for from Spirit, is better understanding, be more easily acceptant of what's taking place, acceptant of ourselves. A little less judgment, a little more love. And that moves us into the third step, which is the meditation phase, where we integrate our being with the divine being. And meditation, this part, is probably the most elusive of the 5 steps, and it is also the most wonderfully compelling. When we meditate, we rest in the silence. This isn't something we try to do. This isn't something we work at. This is something we allow to happen. And that's why this is a flowing, moving process. Because we begin by relaxing physically and mentally and opening ourselves, and then deciding on an aspect of spirit that's going to help us overcome a challenging situation or whatever it happens to be that you're praying for. And then take that with you into that space, that silence, that oneness, where there is only one. It's not you and, it's one. And it is, as a phase of prayer, meditation is where you center yourself in your own divine identity. And that's something that we all have, and yet too few of us recognize it. This is when I saw this picture, I thought, that's it. That's the vision. That's the oneness. Just being part of all that is. I am an individualized expression of all that is. And these are some phrases that you might want to use. Love is all that is, and I am love. I am divine life. I am divine wisdom. My name and nature is divine order. Now, this is after you have recognized that as an aspect of the all that is, that you name yourself as an individualized expression of that. It might be, I am harmony and understanding. You acknowledge divine nature or God is that wisdom, and since you are, I am, an individualized expression of God, I am that as well. Is that making sense? So now, I want you to write a specific aspect of spirit and claim it. Claim it as yours. So the same aspect of spirit that you named that was going to help in the situation that you might have been thinking about, you now claim as yours. That's the integration. And this is where the real, this is the good stuff. So just take a minute. I know spirit is whatever, fill in the blank, and therefore I am, fill in the blank. Okay, would anyone like to share what they've written? Paula.
I remember that God, Spirit, has the answer or the solution to what concerns me. Therefore, I am at peace.
Anyone else? But you get the idea, and as you will see, I will repeat later in this presentation, it takes practice. We're so used to saying that, we're so used to what the prayers we grew up with. And that's okay. There's no wrong way to pray. What I have been learning and what I'm sharing with you is that this is more effective. And that's the point. It is praying from that center of oneness that will more quickly and easily bring you to the answer. Within the prayer practice, it is this meditation that prepares you for what is to come. And then we flow to that fourth movement, which is realization, where you come to know, I can, I have. It is the fruit of prayer. Spiritual realization is the fruit of prayer. So just like an apple tree will bear apples, that is the fruit. The fruit of meditation will be the realization, the answer to your prayer. So in this fourth movement, I realize I can. I have. It is already mine. Or I know. The answer, you come to the real, and when you get to that point, when you come to that realization, that doesn't mean it's sitting right there right now. It means in spirit, it is already done, and you're just sitting back waiting to see the manifestation. It's not, prayer is not, I love this quote from Eric Butterworth, one of my favorite writers. Anything that Eric Butterworth has written, you can read it and love it, because he was a great writer, great speaker, and a great truth teller. And he said prayer is not something we do to God, but to ourselves. It is not asking, but knowing. It is not words, but feeling. And not will, but willingness. And that to me sums all of this up. It's like Meister Eckhart said, if the only prayer you ever said was thank you, that would be enough. And I think if you understood this one statement from Eric Butterworth, that would be enough. It is so profound. So on page 9 of your workbook, you have all of this written out. When one experiences realization of a specific, particular power of God, they have a clear vision. They understand the truth underlying the present circumstances. They're no longer stuck in the story they may have been telling themselves. We all tell stories to ourselves, right? You realize that, right? And the truth beneath what appears on the surface is revealed through that realization. And you can see beyond appearances. So thinking about your own life, when did you experience realization? Because I know it's happened to every single one of you. And so if you'd like to, I would love to hear your story about a time when you knew without a doubt that something that happened or something was going to happen and it did. Because those were those moments of realization. Anyone have a story they'd like to share? Barb?
I don't know if it really warrants the microphone, but it's one that happened once. We were on a trip and we were in a cemetery, and it was a huge cemetery. And we were looking for an ancestor of mine. We had no idea. Well, we did know we kind of had coordinates that we had gotten somewhere, but we were having no luck, and I don't know, there were a lot of acres there. So we were about ready to leave, and I said, God, I could use a little help here. And not 10 seconds later, a man mowing pulled up to our car on his little riding mower and said, could I help you? And I said, well, yeah, and what we're looking for. And he said, well, no, it's not down there, it's right back there. And we found it. I said, thanks, that was pretty quick.
Don't you love those stories? And they are realizations. Barb and Rich went with the intention of finding Barb's ancestor in this massive cemetery, about ready to give up. But by letting go and letting God, it works. It works. And that brings us to the final step of the prayer process. And that is appreciation, giving thanks. And I'll betcha you said thank you, didn't you? Because appreciation is being grateful for. It's recognizing the full worth. Not just the fact that, hey, I found it, but hey, something special's going on here. And it's understanding that fully. And when you feel that, you can't help but be grateful, can you? And what you appreciate appreciates. It rises in value. Divine consciousness lives in you. So practice expressing appreciation inward. It's not about saying thank you to the guy on the mowing machine. It's about saying thank you, Divine Spirit, for working through me and showing me your presence in my life. I feel so blessed, knowing God is wisdom and therefore I am wise. I rest assured that my decisions bring only good, and all things are working together for my highest good. Therefore, the right and perfect outcome is certain, and I am grateful for my increasing awareness to my own divine identity. I'm thankful for receiving the spiritual insight I needed to resolve this situation. And I am blessed. I am so grateful, and I am blessed. So, once again, it's your turn. Turn to page 11 in your workbook and take some time to think about what you're grateful for in your own life. And write down just a few things right now. And I would recommend that you get into the habit of doing this regularly. Just take 5 minutes, 3 minutes, a minute, and jot down 2 or 3 things. It doesn't have to be a big thing. We have so much to be grateful for. Just a few more seconds. Who'd like to share something they're grateful for? Sharon?
I'm grateful that I can still drive and for my health and my family, and that I can still live by myself and take care of the things I need to do.
Those are all excellent. Got anything?
My house, my car, my job, and my family.
Yes, absolutely. How about you, Rich?
Grateful for a very forgiving wife.
Good idea. Okay, so that's something you can do every day. You know, you can be grateful for a blue sky. You can be grateful for, I love cardinals, so I'm always grateful when I see a cardinal at my bird feeder. And I buy special food for them, and they don't always show up. So that's the 5-step prayer process that Unity recommends. Relax, concentrate, meditate, come to a realization, and appreciate. So you have been given a little blue slip that you can shove in your wallet or your purse, and just remind yourself of those steps. And take them anytime. If you're waiting in the doctor's office, if you're sitting in the dentist chair, like I did on Monday. I did. I did go through this process a few times. So now we're going to move into incorporating denials and affirmations into our prayer process. We deny what we don't want and say yes to what we do want. Another book that you might be interested in picking up is called Adventures in Prayer, Praying Your Way to a God You Can Trust. Because sometimes that God that was sitting up on the throne when we were little kids was pretty mean. And what we're working on here is moving away from that vengeful God outside of us from our childhood to the loving Spirit that lives in and through us. And we begin with those denials or negations by erasing, dissolving, releasing, letting go of the old. And once we have, nature hates a vacuum, a void. You can't have emptiness. Those black holes just suck everything into them. So rather than emptiness, once we get rid of what we don't want, then we replace it, we support it by claiming, planting, building an affirmation of what we do want to see in our life. And I love that idea. I love the idea of claiming and building something new. And I might not even know exactly what it's going to look like. In fact, 90% of the time I don't. Sometimes we get close.
When you say denials, I know in the past, I've learned affirmations are statements.
Mm-hmm.
Are denials considered statements as well?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so do you say, I do not want something to happen?
Let me go a little bit further before we go there.
All right.
So denials clear the way. They clear the way of the congestion that's been accumulated in our thoughts, in our minds. Perhaps it's those trainings from childhood. Perhaps we lived in a family where you never did anything right. Anybody ever have one of those situations? And sometimes, and I don't care how old we are, sometimes we still do it to ourselves. And so that's what we're doing. We're working on freeing that drain, freeing that clog, that congestion from our hearts and minds. And it's not about saying something isn't true that's true. It's not about ignoring the facts. We're going to face the facts, and we're going to feel the way we feel. We're not going to say, I'm happy when I'm miserable. We're going to face our feelings, and we're going to deal with them honestly. And that's really super important. Face the facts, feel the feelings. That's not what we're denying. What we're denying is thoughts and beliefs that are contrary to the spiritual truth underlying the circumstance. So, if the circumstance is ill health, the truth is God is wholeness. Now, does that mean that if you feel, if you're shivering and shaking and running a fever, that you just say, oh, I feel great? No. You deal with the facts and you look to the underlying truth that the divine is wholeness. My true nature is wholeness. I am not experiencing that right now, but I know that the divine working through me and as me can return me to my true nature. Now, does that help with your question? Yes. Okay. Change is the only constant. I mean, and it's funny because we think, oh, I like things to stay the same. Well, the truth is, nothing ever stays the same. The change might be very, very slight. You might not even be able to notice it in a day or two or a week or a month. But things are changing nonetheless. So what we're doing is we're denying the permanence of what we're feeling. Just because you don't feel good today doesn't mean you're never going to feel good again. And even what is a fact, a quote-unquote fact, is subject to change. I mean, there was a time when everyone on this planet said, planet flat Earth is what we live on. That was a fact. The fact was that the Earth, the sun revolved around the Earth. That's why we had day and night. No, the Earth is revolving around the sun, but the facts changed. So we have to realize that even facts are not necessarily facts. What we deny is our own negative interpretations of the circumstances. And this is really, really important. What we think and what we do affect how we feel. Because if we're thinking about how bad we feel, or how bad the economy is, or how much I hate my job, or how I'll never get a raise, or whatever it happens to be, if that's what we're focusing on, guess what we're going to get more of? Exactly that. But if we're spending time in prayer and meditation, if our focus is on that divinity that is only love, that divinity that says, I am filled with love. My life is filled with loving people. There is happiness. There is plenty. If we focus on that, then where are our feelings going to go? Our feelings are going to go toward what's good, what's happy, because we're looking for that. I mean, have you ever noticed how when you buy a new car, or when you're thinking about buying a car, it's like when Mike and I had no intention of buying a Buick when he was in a car accident and our car got totaled and we had to buy a new car. We weren't intending to buy a new car, had no plans to buy a new car, got a really good deal on a Buick. And now, ever since we've had that Buick, I see Buicks everywhere. Everywhere. Where did they all come from? They weren't there before. At least I didn't see them. But that's the way it works. What we think about, we bring about. And what we're doing with our denials is we're denying the negative stories that we've been telling ourselves about the situation. Oh, it's never going to get any better. Oh, I'm never going to find someone. I'm never going to have any new friends. I'm too old. I'm too this. I'm too that. Don't go there. We deny those things and we focus on what we do want. We deny our identification with a condition. I really like this. I'm a person who happens to have a condition. I am not that condition. Think about that. I know someone who suffers from depression. And love this person dearly. And but I can't tell you how many times I've heard the statement, "I'm so depressed," come out of her mouth. When you say "I am," whatever comes behind it, you are. So don't wish that on yourself. You are not. I've been going through something that has not been making me happy. I know that God is love. I know that God is joy. I know that that divine joy is my true nature. And I can be joy. I am joy. I am joyful. I am having fun. I am enjoying life. All of the things that are related to joy, you can then claim once you deny what you don't want. You can deny being part of what's called groupthink, or the global consciousness, or the larger consciousness. I mean, there was a time until 1954 where it was an accepted, quote unquote, fact that the human body was not, it was just not possible for the human body to run a whole mile in 4 minutes. It was impossible until, what was the guy's name?
Koch. The last name was Koch.
Koch? I thought it was something else, but anyway. Roger Bannister, thank you, that's who I was thinking. Yeah, that broke the 4-minute mile barrier. I believe he was. Well, at least he was the most famous one. Maybe this other man did it first, and I just didn't hear of him. But and once Roger Bannister did it, and it was all over the newspapers. Guess what? All the time, people were running the 4-minute mile on a regular basis. Mount Everest. Up until 1885, Mount Everest was impossible to climb. Now you see people, that haven't ever climbed a mountain before in their life going up Mount Everest. So just because a larger consciousness believes something doesn't mean it's true or a fact. Linda Martella Whitsett says, what can be, if we eliminate belief in limitation and impossibility. We are only limited by our belief. And if we believe it, if we believe it can't be done, or we can't do it, guess what? We're right. I think it was Henry Ford that said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Either way. So we have to see beyond appearances, and that's why we're in unity. That's why we study this stuff, because we want to be able to do that more easily and more often. So here's a few examples of spiritual denial. I release my unfavorable interpretations. I release all blame and negate any sense of personal responsibility for this situation or condition. I mean, if you've been in an accident and suffered a broken leg, or your car got totaled, are you going to beat yourself up over it? No. Stuff happens. I mean, stuff happens. It happens all the time. Like I said, the only thing constant is change. So don't let temporary conditions limit or define who you are. All right, I am an individualized expression of God. Let's all say it. I am an individualized expression of God. And you have to say that. I use that is one sentence from the statement of being, and I love the statement of being, but that one sentence I repeat so often. It's like part of my normal talking to myself, which we all talk to ourselves, so. Neither my body nor my circumstances are the origin of my life. What is the origin of our life? That's right. There is only one. I am an individualized expression of God. Just bake it into your brain. Say it anytime you get the chance. That is your true identity. A denial also is the denying of misguided beliefs about our nature or our divine identity. What we're doing through denial is making corrections to what's gotten stuck in our consciousness, just like that drain. Something's gotten stuck there, and it's not helping us. So we want to deny it, and then as part of that process, we can quit saying, oh, well, I'm only human. No, you're not. You are a divine being having a human experience. You're not only human. You are divine. And when you really get that and start living from your own inner divinity, you will see such a change in your life. So practice denials. Get into the habit of regularly questioning what you have been assuming to be true, about yourself especially. That's really the most important thing. Because where does it all start? It all starts right within each and every one of us. What happens in my life begins because of me. And we can all state that as a fact. It has its beginning with me. And stuff is not, that doesn't mean I blame myself when something goes wrong. Because it's not what happens out there that makes the difference. What happens out there is nothing compared to what's going on in here. It's not what happens, but how we deal with what happens that makes all the difference. And so when we start jumping to conclusions about, oh, I must have done something, it's all my fault, maybe we ought to question that assumption and look for the good in ourselves. And if we did something wrong, if we hurt someone's feelings, we can make amends. I was having I had a doctor's appointment today, and I was not in a very good mood. Let me just put it that way. And the receptionist, let me just say I was a little short-tempered. And I realized it. And she was a nice young girl. I don't know her from Adam. But I said, I apologize. I have been quite short-tempered with you, and you have done nothing to deserve it. Please forgive me. And that was basically the end of the conversation. Whether she did or not is not, there's nothing I can do about that. But at least I recognized my own shortcoming. My humanness was showing. I wasn't showing my divine identity that minute. And we do that, and it's okay. But we fess up and own up to it, but we don't say, oh, I'm a bad person because I was behaving in a less than wonderful way. We release ideas that are contrary to truth with a capital T. There's a difference between truth with a small t and truth with a capital T, right? Truth is that immutable, unchangeable, divine truth. That God is all, that we are individualized expressions of God, that God is love. Consequently, what are we? We are love. So we need to release any ideas that tell us we're less than. And that brings us to affirmations. We replace what has been denied with an affirmation. An affirmation says, it's a powerful, powerful spiritual practice. It's not just positive thinking. It's not just being hopeful. It's not just, well, it's possible that I could win the lottery and then all my troubles would be over. It's not that. It's not wishful thinking. It is a powerful spiritual practice. And when we use affirmations, what we're doing is focusing on the present, on the now. What is that old saying? Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. Today is the gift. And that's why we call it the present. That is the gift, the now moment. So rather than talking about having or doing something, we talk about being. Rather than being, rather than doing a perfect job, we are being our best self. We recognize what God is, back to that prayer process step, and we integrate by saying, because I know that God is love, I also know that I am love. And so instead of saying, I will always have more than enough money, we affirm, I am divine abundance. I am an ever-flowing stream of plenty. Do you see the difference there? It's not what we do or have, it's who we are. We are abundance. I hope that makes sense. Our affirmations are an inner conviction of truth, independent of outer circumstances. There's stuff that's going to go on out there. And what we're affirming is not that that's not happening. We're affirming our divine identity. We're affirming the truth that is undeniable. If there's a situation and you don't have an answer, you just don't know what to do, can you think of an aspect of the divine you might want to call on if you're looking for an answer? How about wisdom? Wisdom might be a good one. Or it might be patience. Or it might be direction. Guidance. Yes. So think about what is underlying your request. Not more money, but a sense of abundance, a feeling of abundance, a knowing that God is abundance, therefore I am abundance. I like this one too. Like an anchor holds a boat steady in the water, affirmations support us. And I think that's why I use that I am an individualized expression of God so much, because that underlies everything else. And when I get stuck, I know that I can go to that. I find myself, when someone teaches a class like this, guess who learns more than anybody? Since I've been studying this stuff, and I've been working on this for a few months now, I mean, really, really focusing on this 5-step prayer process and affirmative prayer and effective prayer. Since I've been working on this, I find myself using any spare minute I have to go into prayer and meditation. And I don't necessarily call it, I'm not necessarily praying for anything specific. It's just that when I have a spare moment, it is a relief and a release and an uplift. It's like a minute of meditation is like a 10-minute nap, for me anyway. So I wish that each one of you could have that same experience. Because when we practice and repeat our affirmations regularly and often, we just get more comfortable with them. And it becomes a natural part of who we are and becomes a natural way of speaking. When I heard myself being semi-rude to that receptionist, I was like, oh, Anita, I didn't like that. I had to apologize because that's the person that I was showing to her was not the person I want to be. So I had to correct that, at least for myself. So we want to make prayer part of our daily practice. And I'm going to be wrapping things up with how we can, some ideas you can use if you choose to make prayer part of your daily practice. Because daily prayer and meditation practice, what it does is it builds our spiritual consciousness. And as we raise our spiritual consciousness, it leads us to higher and higher spiritual realizations. Remember that fourth step? And that spiritual realization, the more we experience that, the more that we will start living every day in spiritually conscious ways. And I look at it like, I mean, if I was semi-rude to somebody, I'm not saying that I do that a lot, but I probably in the past wouldn't have taken a second to apologize to that young woman. I'd have thought, oh, I'm having a bad day, that wasn't very nice, and walked away. But that's not who I am. I'm changing. And I'm affirming to me that I'm changing. And that's why I did that. Daily prayer practice builds our spiritual muscle much the same as physical exercise builds our physical muscles. And I'm one of the things that I'm working on is a self-care program. And part of my self-care program is going to the gym more frequently. My wonderful husband has been urging me to do that ever since we were married. And but I'm an off and on exercise person. He's just steady. That's what he does. But I'm an off and on person. So part of what I've done for my self-care program is started going to the gym more regularly. And when I went and I met with a trainer, and oh my goodness. Well, I got home, I said, how'd it go? I'm like, oh, it's pretty good. And he said, are you sore? And I'm saying, no, I'm not. And then the next day came. Boy, that was a wake-up call. And then the day after that, it was even worse. So now I'm getting into the habit of going to the gym a little more regularly so I don't have to go through that quite as frequently. So it's the same thing with our daily prayer practice. We build up our spiritual muscle by practicing on a daily basis. And it's a lot easier than going to the gym. When we learn to live consciously from the realization of our own divine identity, then guess what? Those prayers that we're praying are very likely being achieved. Because when we realize truth, then we start living it and we start seeing it in our lives all around us. So here's the spiritual practice plan that I've come up with. 4 steps, 4 parts: meditation, introspection, education, and inspiration. Meditation, I recommend, if you can find the time, to meditate for 30 minutes twice a day. You don't have to. You can meditate for 5 minutes 10 times a day. Whatever works for you. Just do it as often as you can. And your meditation can be done as part of this 5-step prayer process, but it doesn't have to be. Meditation can be done independently, and you can use when I first started to meditate, I really liked to go on YouTube and find a 5-minute meditation or a 10-minute meditation, whatever I felt I had time for. And there's some really good ones. So if you want to go on YouTube, you can find a guided meditation to help you. Or my daughter does her meditation when she walks her dog. A walking meditation is a very good form of meditation. You don't have to sit and be still, because some people aren't real good at sitting and being still. Or you can take a yoga class, or you can take a Tai Chi class. There are all kinds of moving meditations that work better for some people. Focused attention is that just watching your breath in and out. Exhale and inhale. The sound bath meditation, if you get a chance, Mike and I once went to a gong meditation, which was wonderful. They had all kinds of different sizes and different sound gongs, and they had a little incense going on in the room and a few little those rattly beady things. I don't know what they're called. But it was cool. And on World Day of Prayer at Unity East, we had a crystal bowl meditation. Oh my goodness. That was the second one that I had been to. When Mike and I were down in Florida a couple years ago, and I had the opportunity to go to a crystal bowl meditation, and it was, when I heard that there was someone in the area that was, had that capability, and this gal that did it at Unity East had this beautiful singing voice and did chanting along with the meditation, and her husband played a Native American flute. Oh, it was lovely, 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 lovely. Or just resting awareness, just resting and being. You don't even have to close your eyes. You can focus on nothing or just focus on one thing. You can do mantra meditation. You can do visualizations. You can do a body scan or a light meditation where you have a sense of light moving through your body, and you visualize that light moving through the top of your head, down through all areas of your body, and fill your body with light. So there's lots of ways that you can meditate, and it can be part of the prayer process or it can be independent. And then the introspection part. And journaling has been a go-to for me for many, 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 many years. Back when Jack Boland was around, the Mastermind Goal Achievers Journal was, I still have mine. I probably have, at least 10 of them. And someday I swear I'm going to look at them again. But it might be a little surprising what I wrote in there, but but writing down what we're thinking, what we're feeling, especially if it's something tough to deal with, it's helpful to get that out. And for me, journaling really does. And it has been proven that it boosts health and well-being, helps to reduce stress, and it is definitely a way to process emotions. I've used it in that way a lot. And it deepens our self-discovery. It helps us. And if you don't like to write, maybe you can find someone to talk to, a good listener. Someone that's going to try to give you the answers. just someone that'll listen. So that introspection, looking within, finding those hidden areas that might still be lurking, which they probably are. And then education. As I said, Eric Butterworth is one of my favorite Unity authors, but authors period. And Discover the Power Within You, that is an excellent, excellent, excellent book. I have another one of my personal favorites, I think it's called In the Flow. Love that one. That's a really good one too. This How to Pray Without Talking to God by Linda Martella-Whitsett. A lot of what I learned for this presentation came from that book. She's currently has a very high position, and I don't know exactly what it is, with Unity Worldwide in prayer. And actually, she's working on another new book right now, which I don't know when it's going to be coming out. But another book by her is listed here as well, Divine Audacity. And I've been doing a lot of work with the 12 powers, and the Divine Audacity book takes each of the 12 powers, and you've got a handout that's taken from Linda Martella-Whitsett's Divine Audacity book. I mean, there's been book study groups on that book. I mean, if you want a book study to do, I would recommend that one, Divine Audacity. And I just heard about this one. I haven't read it myself. What Are You? By Imelda Octavia Shanklin. I believe she is another Unity minister. And I heard good things about the book. I have not read that myself. And of course, Charles Fillmore, just about anything written by Charles Fillmore is going to be good, but The Mysteries of John works a lot on, I tried to focus a lot on books that are supportive of this class, of the effective prayer class. So recommend any of those, and there's lots more. For inspiration, listen to or watch something that inspires you. I loved the movie. I loved Hidden Figures, The Blind Side, the one about Mr. Rogers, Won't You Be My Neighbor? I mean, he was quite a man, Mr. Rogers. Rudy, The Pursuit of Happiness. There's a lot of good books. And then be careful what you listen to on the radio too. I mean, looking around the room, I doubt that there's probably a whole lot of people listening to rap music in here. However, there is some other music that I used to listen to I still listen to a lot of music I used to listen to as a teenager. And all of a sudden I started to realize that the lyrics of some of those songs are like, I'm not listening to that anymore. So if it comes on the radio, I switch channels. But if you've not heard Stow Good, they do a lot of stuff that's very appropriate. It would be appropriate at a Unity service. And Karen Drucker, and if you haven't heard Danny Gokey, I love Danny Gokey. He's really good too. So there are a lot of music, a lot of movies, a lot of things you can watch and listen to that will support you and inspire you. So what do these three things have in common? This guy and the girl and basketball. They all take practice. And that's what effective prayer takes. It takes practice. The realization of enlightenment is temporary. As long as we're in this human form, we're not going to be perfect spiritual beings every minute of every day. Spiritual practice builds neural pathways making those moments of realization, those moments of enlightenment, not only more likely, but more frequent. So practice, practice, practice. Even though many of us have been praying since we were children, how effective are our prayers? And in Unity, we teach practical Christianity, which includes developing a prayer practice that works. So in this workshop, we have joined together to expand our consciousness, become more aware of that divine presence in each of us, and learn more about how we can make this sacred practice and our prayers more effective in these times. Thank you. So before we leave, let's close in prayer. So let's center ourselves. Relax our physical forms and relax our mind. And move to that place of oneness where our humanness and our divinity meet with the oneness of all that is. And it is from this place of oneness, this place of allness, that we pray. And when we reach this place and stay in this place and sit in this place in our own silence and really connect with that inner divinity, the truth of who we really are, it is from that place that our prayers will be the most effective, and we will realize some of the most wonderful things about ourselves. We will know we can do, we can be, we can have it all, because we are it all. We are individualized expressions of the One. And we are so grateful for knowing that. And we are so grateful that we have come together for this workshop, for this time of sharing and growing our consciousness. We are thankful because we know we have grown. And so it is. Amen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we do have an offering basket here if you would like to share. We appreciate it, and what you appreciate appreciates. Thank you.